Welcome. I am here with Craig Baute. He is a co-founder and partner at DenSwap and Creative Density. He has some updates that he's going to share today. And I also have to mention that Craig and I share a special bond, which is that we have the same birthday.
That's right.
I
That's
feel like we
right.
had a juicy on our birthday one year.
We did. In fact,
Yeah,
one of the very first juicies.
totally. I mean, it's a fun way to spend a birthday.
That's right.
Okay. Craig, I can't wait to catch up. We've been pre-chatting, but we haven't talked in a while. So you have a lot going on. And today we're going to talk about what's new in your business. And you've got a big announcement, and you're going to talk about the why and the how and all the good things. So you have merged with a local operator. Give us some background. How many
Okay.
locations? How many years you've been in business? I'm just going to let you roll because you have a lot
Okay.
to share. I'll
All right.
interrupt occasionally with some questions, but I know you've got a plan around what we want to share with the audience, and this will be fun.
Yes, and please
And
jump in. I have
congrats.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm known to talk. So
Me too. That's why I'm like, okay, I'll just let you go and then I won't get in trouble with any listeners for talking too much. Okay.
so one I feel like this is going to be really relevant to all the listeners out here because backstory. I've been around since 2011 in the co-working world. Opened my first space when I was just like, oh God, 24 with
I know.
Visa and MasterCard as my investors.
So
Back in the
funny.
day when you didn't compete on amenities, you just created a vibe and like
Mhm.
hung out with each other.
Well, I remember that you
Oh,
guys had a kickball team
we
and I
did
thought
kickball
that's
tournaments.
fun. Yeah.
Fun fact, that's is one of the reasons why this merger happened is because it's those things that you do it was a kickball tournament between co-working spaces.
Okay.
And we started that through Denver Coworks. Okay, anyways,
Okay.
we'll wind it back for the story. Started first
Okay.
co-working space in 2011. Very co-working 1.0. I needed a place to work. I loved being around people, never worked from home, all that story. That's how I got into the co-working world. Have had several locations, grown, closed some down, sold some, bought some. This time around, now lifestyle change, 2 kids now in the picture. Life got busier. I now have new expertise and new desires than running the co-working space after 13 years. Have always had little side projects. Now those little seeds have grown into needing much more of attention. Listeners, I bet you relate to a lot of this.
Mhm.
And I had a great right hand person. She was awesome. She started running one of my locations. And as I became busier, she really filled into that role, started running. We had 4 locations at the time. And she basically was running the space with me as her assistant. Okay, this all leads into the thing. She was with me for 4 years, but eventually they leave. And I was pulled into the day-to-day operations all over again. Now I am running like 4 locations and
You don't remember
I'm
how anything works at this point. Yeah. I remember having to
like,
work at the front desk. I'm like, oh my God, wait, how do we do this? And having to like watch the videos and
yeah.
what do we do
One
now?
thing that's
Ah,
way better is like at least the software like stores all
yeah.
the leases now and like keep tracks of
Everything's,
everything.
yes, lots of technology improvements
Has
over
made
13
improvement,
years.
but you're like, oh my God, I am like replacing keys, I'm repairing keys, I'm filling up ink. I'm like, not like I can't. I just like when you have 4 locations and you
Yeah.
have 2 kids and you have a schedule now. And as like I'm doing all this market research and feasibility studies, like I have deadlines coming in from there. Anyways, right hand person,
Yeah.
wonderful person,
Wait, so was she
Sophie.
at like a GM level or was she a location manager plus GM level? How did she fit in?
So yeah, she was part-time community manager, went full-time. After that, then she was managing and she probably had 2 part-time people running
Okay.
around on all the locations.
But
I
she
always
was
had
the
my
point person
She was the
for
point
the
person.
business.
I didn't
Okay.
have to deal with daily
Yeah.
emails. I always hung out at my favorite location, my original location. And so I did work. So I was present, but like not the point person.
Hmm.
Anyway, she leaves. I'm now the point person.
Hmm.
And then I have to hire a new point person. And then I have to train a new point
Yeah.
person. And then what I found out is I am the person running it and they're my assistant.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it needs to be. So I called up because so at this point we had 3 locations.
Local. Is this
Local, 3
okay.
local locations.
Yeah.
Chicago is separate.
Okay.
3 local locations. I'm pulled into the day-to-days. And because of Denver Coworks, which is the alliance that launched in 2012, us space owners all getting together about every other month, I eventually called. We've always kind of like flirted with each other. They've been around since 2011 as well. And I knew we got along, called them up quite literally. It was like, I got an email and I was like, God, I don't want to do this. I just stepped outside and I called Chad, who's one of the owners of Thrive, who we merged with, and said, dude, let's have lunch. He goes, why? I'm ready.
It's time.
It's time. Which is so funny. They said they took me out to lunch like a year ago and said, I thought you said no to us. I'm like, I never knew you asked me out on a date. Like, we got to be explicit about this. Like, let's not just beat around the bush. So we knew each other. We both run our businesses in a very similar way. Here's the big difference. They're run by brothers. So there's 2 owners. They are, over the course of 10 years, they were more ambitious because it was always me. So they grew to 5 locations, and all of my locations are neighborhood locations. So generally think 3 to 8,000 square feet. Their locations are more hubs, regional locations, ranging from basically 15 up to 40,000 square feet. So they've grown. They went to more locations. They went to larger locations. Sure. And here's the key that was like, oh my God, like this is the group. They have middle-level managers. They got to that scale to where there was the community managers. They even had some associate managers at there. And then they have 2 people that are head of people and a person in charge of operations. And then the owners sit on top of them. And they were in that point to where they got to middle-level manager level. And that middle-level manager level has capacity. So like they know that they need to grow in order to justify that. Yeah. To justify that middle-level manager. And that was their strategy. So the owners can do other things like growth. They're focused on growth. They're a contractor and an architect are the 2 brothers. They're full-time co-working people.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful super skill to have a contractor and an architect. Yeah. And then I can join in that management level on top of them, more like at a board level part-time. Okay. But then it was that middle level manager that is key, that does take scale.
Yep. It does take scale. I mean, 5 locations is probably just about it. I think that's one of the hard things about this business is you had 3 locations and maybe there's, smaller, whatever, but still you get to the point where it's like, well, somebody, it's hard somebody has to pay attention to all 3 of them. Yeah. Somebody's doing marketing. There's still all of the functions that need to get done. But you're not quite at the scale where you can hire CMOs or the resources that really start to make it more comfortable. But then also you have to maintain that scale because you're allocating their salaries across the locations. I think it's challenging because it's like hard to get to that scale, and you really you need more help outside of the location level, but it's hard to make it work financially. So.
And it's a fun that's space. Why a lot of co-working spaces, they get 1 to 2 and like maybe 3, but then you see a jump up and like to where then the groups have 8 to 20 locations and become local operators. You have to, and you have to make that commitment or that jump. Yep. We made that commitment and jump by coming together. So it's exciting. I'm glad I also have a little bit of safety barrier that I won't ever get pulled back into the day-to-day. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of changes in my own mental state that any small business owner does, that when they go out of this, they're not the dictator. They're not the person in control.
You're not in charge anymore, Craig.
No, I'm part of a team, which is exciting and like
totally. Yep.
I have meetings now.
Yeah.
And this is me like at a part-time level doing that. Yeah. And then I'm going to sound really dramatic. I have an hour and a half meeting once a week that I
Yeah.
have to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
team, is it your like executive team meeting
Yeah.
or
The
yeah,
leadership team meeting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
feel a
it's,
little dragged down by that like slot on your calendar.
yeah,
You have
yes.
client calls, you have other things that take up time on your calendar. I hear you
Those are,
though.
yeah. 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 It's a big change when you're an owner and you're like, I
Totally.
have no meetings. I just make decisions. Right.
Totally. And you never feel, I mean, I'm sure the executive team meeting is very productive, but right, all the corporate people who are just like, yeah, I just sit in meetings or like they're multitasking on calls or whatever. I'm like, I have 0 calls where I'm not in charge of the call. Yeah.
So
There's
true.
no just
Yeah.
sitting around wasting time. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the prices for making that jump of when you reach
Mhm.
scale. Like I always have friends that are software developers. They're software developers. Well, after 5 years of being a
Yeah.
software developer, your next level up is managing software developers.
Yep.
And they're like, oh man, I hate doing that. They're like, I just want to write code.
I want to
You
be an
have to
independent
make that mental
contributor.
switch.
And
Yep. Yep. And
yep.
so we made that switch. And there's a lot of exciting possibility. Like they're excited about because of this scale, there is growth and there is like we can start being aggressive in growing and like open up 2-3 locations now, and there's now divisions of headspace to where someone is in charge of growth, someone is in charge of like build out, someone's in
Yeah.
charge of marketing.
Yeah.
And when someone quits, there's someone in charge of like finding a new
Hiring and
person to
training.
replace them. Yes. Yes. All of these exciting things that require being part of a team with the sacrifice of decision-making power.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so what will you be in charge of? You mentioned sort of a board level. So structurally, I'm sure this could look like a lot of you probably sat down and had lunch and thought, when you said, okay, let's have lunch and had to figure out like what do you want your role to be? I assume there's some sort of like financial component of that, plus what does Craig contribute to the organization, which doesn't necessarily have to look the same. Like if people are listening and thinking, oh, that sounds interesting, like you probably can carve that out based on your interests and your skill set. But yeah, how did
Yep.
you think about that? And then without, giving away any, sort of personal secrets, when you say merger, like, yeah, how did you sort of think about that structure? You still have a financial stake in the business, I
Yep.
presume. Yeah, tell
Yep.
us what you're willing to share.
Yeah, that's fine. I like being an open book. Hopefully the team is all good with that. So they were already structured in a very like good financial, like corporate level because they previously had investors. They no
Okay.
longer really had outside
And
investors.
also everyone should have an operating agreement if they have.
Yes.
So they had that all
So
like everything in place.
there is the there's two, there's the holdings company
Okay.
and then there's the management company.
Okay.
So this will be very familiar to some people.
Yeah. Wait, and do
The
they
whole
lease their locations or do they buy?
mine were all management agreements.
Yeah. Oh,
So
okay.
I had management agreements. They had leases.
Okay.
So there's the holding company, and the holding company has all of the locations underneath them. Okay, so that's like, and then there's the management company that is really the owners.
Yeah.
And we get paid 10% of revenue that goes into the management. So it's very similar to a franchise.
Yep.
And then the holding company is its own LLC with all the individual LLCs on top of it. So if you needed to ramp up a space with a loan or an investor, you could do that at the site level.
Yeah.
But then revenue share goes to management, then is responsible for branding, marketing, finding new locations, just the leadership.
Yep.
And then we get distributions based on that.
Yeah.
So,
but there ideally is a consistent 10% fee that's going to the management company.
Correct.
From each location, like overall. Yeah.
Yeah. And I should feel comfortable saying that. That's pretty industry standard.
Yeah, totally.
Is a 10% thing. My role then is growth. So really finding new landlords to work with, because it's really, we're keeping Creative Density and we're keeping Thrive as 2 separate brands. One is going to be like neighborhood co-working. The other one is going to be the hub and spoke model, is the hub model. And then management agreements. That will be my main, because I have a lot of, because of DenSwap's relationships, it's really, this is one option that they can be. And we just get we help landlords at DenSwap develop their strategy. So if it happens to fit in with Thrive and Creative Density, great. If not, we can do another route. But that's just kind of like my expertise and main contribution. I also just love marketing. So but we have a marketing person. So it's also not just me. Purely, but I get my hands dirty. I was working on SEO. I was just reviewing stuff yesterday, and I'm like, I don't need to do this anymore. But I also am part owned. Like I do own.
Yeah. But so maybe you're having to put yourself a little bit more. I mean, you've had that sort of CEO role, but smaller locations, no marketing person. So maybe you were doing some of the things.
I was doing it. I also enjoyed it. Like, that smile when you're like, I'm doing something right now.
Right.
I'm crafting my
email. In order to deliver on your growth objectives, because now you're sitting in a room with other people who expect things from you, which is probably also a shift, right? Like, I think as mostly as entrepreneurs, we expect a lot from ourselves, but it is different when you're like, you mentioned your 90-minute meeting, like you have to show up and you report on what you did this probably.
Yeah. I kind of like, I mean, I got what'd you do? What'd you do this week? And I'm like, I did stuff. I swear. I don't
know if I use like EOS or do they have a
EOS?
Yeah.
Yep. EOS is the method. Yeah. We just scheduled our quarterly to go over our rocks.
So that's new.
Which is a whole new, that's all new for me. Yeah. I've read it before, like 7 years ago.
Yeah. It's hard to do with a small team. And so, but that'll be fun.
Yeah. No, it is to have like goals. Because
professional development. Yeah.
This is other co-working space owners will probably like there's a risk tolerance that you learn that you have after a few years. And especially like as life changes, like with having kids and everything, your risk tolerance just changes. Either you kick it into hyperdrive.
Paying for sports. Let's see how your risk tolerance goes then.
Jamie, I'm excited for college because that will be cheaper than daycare.
Seriously, 2 in daycare is brutal.
2 in daycare, yeah.
It's brutal. Well, they got one who's almost kindergarten.
Almost a year and like
another
half away. Another year and a half.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Hang in there, man.
Can't wait for college. Can't wait for the college. It'll be so cheap compared to now. Yeah. So risk tolerance levels, so when I did my growth of like going from 1 to 4 and then purchasing some Chicago locations, like it was just me that was relying. I had my wife, but she worked full time. Like you can figure it out, but then your risk tolerance changes. And that was the big benefit of like merging is there's a lot of strategic value, but there's, I don't know, you reach a different scale. And it spreads the risk out, and it's exciting with change.
Yeah. Well, I think too, there's an opportunity cost to your time that is so clear to you now, right? Because you weren't in the business.
That's a good point.
Business, but as the assistant, and then you're starting. Then when you had to pop back in, and you're like, okay, well now I'm spending my time fixing the printer jams and onboarding people. Not a good use of your time, but to your point, sometimes I think operators start thinking, well, that's fine. I'll be an owner operator and I'll pay myself the community manager salary and I'll work in the business, which you did for a while until you hired your, managers. And then at some point things in life change and you're like, okay, yeah, that's not going to work. I can't do the $25 an hour job. I need to do the high. I need a better hourly rate. And so then you have to make.
You're like, I'm literally getting hired over here for much more. And you're like, this is. So you have to start to take a step back and think long term. Because coming from the DenSwap perspective, I've seen people in the same position that come to us and being like, I need to sell. And it's like, why do you need to sell? It's like, well, I'm moving. I can't do that. I don't have time for this anymore. And it's either try to sell, cash out, or it's going to close down. Right. And it was like, I think this merging, it's still very rare in the co-working world. This is now becoming as a new option.
Yeah.
As you start to get more players that have, 2, 3 locations, even 2 locations can come together.
Yeah.
But if you can get a little bit more to that 3 to 5,
Yeah.
And if you can get to that level with the middle level managers. So
And to your
yeah,
point, like 5 plus 3 is bigger than 8, right? Because you've got like the value that the folks on the team are bringing allows you to scale further, and they adopt it. So did I mean your spaces are smaller, but they like that as an option.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you
So
make you
those
see
are
the
much more
growth.
automated.
Okay, got it. Tell me about this came up at Juicy, and who is the segment that wants an automated space? You know, in our industry, it's all about
Yeah.
hospitality and
Yeah.
the human connection. But you have automated locations. Who is that for?
So when they're management agreements, a lot of them were in second gen spaces. So there is office people, but we still have like 20 to 30 remote workers at each location.
Okay.
There is, when it's smaller, you can design the space to create interaction that happens organically. And I think that's an underutilized thing of just designing space in an intentional way. That does take an expertise and just experimentation as well. People that just want to get out of the house. And that's generic. I shouldn't say that. We found our competitive advantage is the design that creates interaction. I'm there to kind of like start poking the bear. I call it I often bake something simple and I shake it around in people's faces and I call it the bake and shake to
I'm
start.
Craig. Tell me about yourself over a cookie.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
warm
That's
cookie.
exactly right. But yeah. Okay. But see, this is where I love being a community manager. And now I'm like leadership level and I'm like, okay, this is a different conversation.
Yeah.
Automated space. Okay. Phone booths, okay, great coffee, great people, phone booths and monitors. Hit
Yeah.
those four. If you hit those four
But how
things,
do you manage coffee? I mean, when you say great coffee, are we talking about pods?
no, no, please.
Okay.
That was the
I mean,
one thing. Your
I
good
hear you.
question. Good question. Good question. The bean to cup ones are awesome.
Okay. Yes.
Go,
Okay.
you're going to spend $1,000 to
Yeah.
$2,000 on a machine.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Bean to cup, great option.
Unless you have a coffee shop downstairs and everybody's walking downstairs anyway. But right.
Right. So
Yeah.
go that route. And then standing desks and monitors and phone booths. So
Yeah.
great people. And you can attract great people often by having a spark of energy but let's take that out of the equation.
Yeah.
The physical things that people really want: standing desks, monitors, phone booths, and great coffee. If your branding can be a light that attracts people that are happy, that like have this little chit chatty, and your branding can do that. It can be the self-selector, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to attract people that are already like chit chatty. And then you've designed the space with intentionality. And now you're just providing them these one-off amenities that can endure: phone booths, monitors, standing desks,
Yep.
and intentionally designing those in a way. We've found success in that. I mean, the neighborhood, then there's this new model that I've been obsessing about. I mean, I have presentations about the neighborhood co-working space, like switch yards. Right?
Yes, you and everybody else, by the way. Do you know how many
Okay.
switchyards knockoffs there's going to be in the next couple of years?
Dude, and my presentation is probably like, there's a lot more underneath that than what they are.
Yeah.
They've opened up 25 locations, 28 locations, and they've nailed it. They just launched their location in Denver.
I think they have some secret sauce.
They have some secret sauce. Their rollout strategy, their landlord-friendly approach. I mean, based on my analysis, it costs them around $116,000 to $130,000 to launch that space.
I don't buy that. They spend that much on furniture.
It's all furniture. They have basically zero build out at their locations, and they use file cabinets and 68 fake plants. I like went down and like counted. They're all fake. That's one of their biggest line items in my mind is fake plants and plots. They have 68 fake plants at their Denver location. They have around 70 file cabinets. I mean, I got it all broken down. Okay. Their coffee machines cost $6,500 a piece. They put 2 of them at each location, which does around 210 cups. So someone can come by every 2 to 3 days to fill that up. Anyways, you can break it down. And
well, you better log off and get going because I have a list of people who are on the same path.
But it's not as there's a much bigger secret sauce.
Yeah, I don't think it's that easy to replicate. I think it looks easy. It looks easy, just like co-working in general looks easy, but it's not.
I agree. And I
Yeah.
like we went into dense swaps analytics and we're like looked at the that target market, that area, and we're like, oh crap. Like it was 7 out of 10 for shared desks with a high income of like 220,000. Like when we break it down, but it was zero for offices when we like did a hand-drawn polygon of that area. And we're like, oh crap, that's a market like we've never they're going after the mostly from homers. The mostly work from homers is what at
Yeah.
least I'm calling it. I haven't figured out a catchier name, but they're I sat there and I like listened to people on pre-open and it was everyone they were going to work from home. It was the people that went to the coffee shops 2 days a week for 2 or 3 hours
Yeah.
and $99. You can do
Yeah.
social pressure on your friend at $99.
Yeah. To join
We
with.
always,
Yeah.
yep, join with me.
And
That
then
that's
don't quit. Yeah.
yep. There's something special about $99. The simplicity of the model. They don't have a
Well, especially
microwave.
for high income, then they just don't even, it's like,
So it has to be in the right dense neighborhood. It has to be walkable, dense neighborhood, high income,
yeah.
mostly work from homers. I think that might be what creative density in this merger
Yeah.
starts to go down that
Yeah.
model.
Yeah.
And you can do it with offices as well. There's a lot of forward thinking. That will be the growth of creative density, will be in some form of that
Yeah.
in this automated model. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
You have some teams. So you mentioned in your notes, it sounded like it was attractive to you that your team members would have some upward mobility or ability to take on other roles.
Very okay. I'm glad you brought it back down to that as well. That's something that co-working space. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I lost my right hand person is she was the top and the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Like she was managing some part-time people, but after 4 years, she maxed it out. So by merging and creating these larger entities,
Yeah.
you can develop your talent. And that is something when you're an owner operator that you never think of. You're creating a job for yourself. Well, once you start hiring someone,
Yeah.
it's a different dynamic.
Well, and then, I run the community manager university. I mean, we sort of see like clockwork, 2 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
You get 2 years
Yeah.
out of somebody and then they want to do the next thing. And they have a lot of transferable skills and they've had a lot of ownership and then it's time to go do something else. It's hard if
Yeah.
you don't have the next thing for them or a new location to move to or a space to launch or those types of opportunities that create that excitement and ongoing growth. It's hard. So I loved that point. And it's
It's
just here to
very
recruit.
exciting to have these work along some of these like co-working lifers that
Yeah.
have been inside the company for 5 years, which to have multiple people 5 years
Yeah.
is very
Which
unique.
is mostly happens with larger brands. I mean, we interview
Yeah.
people, Lucid, EOS, and they talk about these right long term. It's because there's always something like to do. There's always something new and exciting happening versus same two locations.
That's exactly right. In fact,
Yeah.
like community manager, so the Thrive Creative Density is going to have 12 locations in the next 3 years.
Okay.
And
That's what the EOS plan says.
that's what the ELS plans does. God, I hope I'm right about that. It's right there. It's right. It's right in that pocket. But people move across what's called the Front Range of Colorado, up into
Okay.
Fort Collins to Colorado Springs and down, and they move, and now we have a location, and we can just transfer that person over. Like just in the like 9 months that I've been sitting in on leadership meetings, we've already had 2 or 3 community managers switch locations for basically that exact same reason. So there is an amazing benefit in scale that you don't realize that is just keeping talent and keeping members. So we've had a former member of Thrive just joined a Creative Density, not knowing that there was a merger or anything. It was we were there in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
And his gym is by the old Thrive location. And so now he's using both of them. And
Oh,
so
nice. Yeah.
you're starting to learn these competitive advantages,
Mhm.
not only in members, but
Yeah.
also staff. And really the staff
Yeah.
thing is an unspoken secret. We all talk about keeping members in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
but keeping your staff
Yeah.
member in
It's
the
so much work. I mean, what
ecosystem.
you described, like, okay, well, I lost somebody. I can train them. It's a lot of work to train somebody, especially someone who's more of a GM. There's so much there. Any other kind of like economies of scale? Like, can you talk, things that you're
You
excited
know what?
about?
Landlords are much more willing to talk to someone, to a group with multiple
Yeah.
locations. That landlords are very much risk adverse. And they like seeing that you have expertise. They like seeing that you have a proven track record, especially if you're looking at management agreements, which still aren't as popular as the internet makes it seem.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to talk about, like, I once
Mhm.
had a conversation about a management agreement,
Yeah.
but they do happen. Like, I had three. All my locations were three. Actually, I've been one of my Chicago locations are a management agreement. Okay. So, speaking out of both sides of my mouth on this one, landlords like talking to people that have a track record. They're going to come, they're willing to come to you. You can also have this capacity to spend effort to talk to landlords versus just learn about
Yeah.
the day, like keep doing the day to day, growing that. You
Right.
can, like, that is a separate
Managing the pipeline
conversation.
is like a part-time job. And when you're really, yeah, if you don't have the right, carve out the capacity to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And that your balance sheet is stronger. You're just more
Mhm.
diversified. You can know these strategies on, oh, this landlord's willing to put $15 of TI into the build out, which is incredibly low, just in case if anyone doesn't know that. But we've done that. We're like, oh, well, this is the business model that can fit and support that. This
Yep.
is our strategy. Now we have two brands. We can
Yeah.
execute on this $15 TI. And now this is going to be the way that the management deal needs to be structured. We have now all these give and takes. So there's just optionality and expertise on how to deal with landlords.
Yep. Totally. Love it. And marketing, you mentioned SEO, like do they have in-house marketing or do they outsource? Do you
In-house, in-house marketing. In fact, in Colorado, God, I hope I can say all this stuff.
got some time? If we have to edit something out, let me know.
Yeah. the the several of the Venture X's and the Office Evolutions and Intelligent Office of the Vast Network,
Yep.
they created their own group. Like, several owners in Metro Denver
Mhm.
came together to do their own group. They
Yep.
now have like 20 locations.
Yep.
They're all tightly working together.
Yeah.
So when you go to one location, they have a flyer that says within 2 miles, this is the other brands that we have, and this is their price point. And this
Okay.
is like outside of like mothership franchise
Yeah.
group.
Sure.
This is all of those local groups working together.
Yep.
And they took a location that was sitting at around 40% occupied, and they got it up to 80% over the course of 2 months by doing this lead sharing. Oh, we now, 1 mile away is, you came to the flagship expensive location because you kind of want a fancy expensive location. They're like, but a mile away, we have this one that's doing some good deals right now.
So if it's not a fit for the lead, you're
Yeah.
not a fit for this location, but we're part of this network. And so we're going to suggest, why don't you try this one? This might
Yeah.
be a good fit. And so got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is something that Denver Coworks especially did early on.
Yeah.
Is like, we had a contact form and a lot of people came through Denver Coworks, and we would then tell them, like, this is the one that's fit your vibe. Like, it was kind of like, can you be a voice of vibe check? I'm looking for this in this neighborhood. Do you know where I should go? But they were able to industrialize it at scale in Metro Denver, and it helped out all of their locations, because otherwise they were going to go to competitor spaces that were nearby.
Yeah.
But now they're just like, you know what? Here's the simple location sheet.
Yeah. And it presents as a unit. It's helpful to the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's value in that scale.
Totally.
And and the one thing that I could talk about quickly is just, when you do this, you're not the owner. And it is something I quickly learned is, before, every dollar was coming into my pocket, right? You were really motivated.
Yeah.
And you kind of earmarked that dollar and be like, oh, I'm going to get this thing when that dollar comes in. I'm going to like upgrade something, and I'm going to go on vacation. I like, whatever. You get to decide where that dollar goes. Every dollar is a profit. When now you're part of a group and you're an employee, you're more salary and distribution. So the way that it's structured, if every like $10,000 that comes into a location, I would get 180. I think, yeah, like 180 of those dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, is that a mind shift of
Yeah.
what, you
Right.
know, this is one of those. You're part of a team.
Yeah.
So my big takeaway was, oh, that's how our staff experiences life. They
Yeah.
don't ever experience it as $1
It's
in is like
direct. Yeah.
yeah. And so I've really been trying to think of a different new way to play around with compensation. And like I'm sitting on this right now. And so if my community manager ever like if she does listen to this, one way that like, once we get above, the hurdle, that number that you need, it splits into three ways. Like every dollar of profit just splits into three ways. $1 to the company
Yeah.
for improvements and everything.
Yeah.
$1 to the company, $1 to me, the owner, and $1 to my community manager. And really kind of like make them feel like an owner. And everyone just gets equal share after this hurdle number. So it's like profits just get split. I mean,
I would
I've
argue
played it.
pretty hard against that on a separate
Yeah.
podcast, but yeah.
Okay. I'm fair with that. That's fine.
I think,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to make it sustainable. I understand what you're saying, but I think every employee like has that experience. Your community manager, I mean, the big brands with sales teams incentivize their sales teams really hard on sales and retention.
Okay.
But you have to have like big locations with a lot of movement in order, and you got to be opening new locations to have that opportunity to fill a space. I think you just have to be careful where you're incentivizing behavior that should be part of the role.
Mm, fair.
I'm just saying
Oh,
the
that's
co-working
fair.
margins are not, 70%. So
No,
you have
you're
to
right.
have a sustainable model that also supports growth because maybe you have investors, but I'm guessing
Oh
some
yeah,
of
this would have to be the
yeah,
neighborhood hobby, like hobby business. And that is one where I'm thinking a lot about retention and
yeah,
creativity and being like creating that same stir. This hasn't been tested. I know when I gave my community manager a very good incentive to fill up offices,
yep.
oh my God, it was just,
Depends on the personality and depends on the opportunity. And the problem is once you fill up offices, they're full. So then
yep,
there have to be systems in place to. I just think you have to very carefully match incentives to like the behavior you're trying to create. And
yes,
once a location
that
is
is,
full, you don't want to be incentivized. It's just you don't be
yeah,
paying for something that's not. But
it is
yeah,
something yeah, don't take my words as God's word on this.
yeah. But also you're going to
There's,
learn a lot because you're going to be
no,
launching probably more locations than you would have on your own, and you're going to see what
yep.
works and what systems they
Take,
use.
big takeaway is, boy, I've never not been a full blown owner,
Yeah.
and your employees are seeing the business through a very different lens.
Yes.
And
But
when
they're
you
not taking the
experience it,
risk either.
correct. Yes.
They
Yeah.
don't.
That needs to be
They go
priced
to
into
sleep.
that
They sleep
hurdle.
like a
That
baby
needs to
every
be
night.
priced into that. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yes.
true.
I'm just saying. You don't get
Yeah.
compensated the same when you're not the
Um,
one taking the risk.
so when you are thinking about it, there is a big difference between owner and then
Yeah.
employee, I guess would be the best way. And try to shift your mind to really understand their perspective sometimes. That because that was something that I was definitely not expecting. Because all of my other businesses, I'm one of two or three owners
Yeah.
at them. So
Yeah.
big shift.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
yeah.
No.
One
Okay. So this is formally being announced, but you've been kind of in this role and you're sitting in on the meetings. And well, you mentioned in our pre-chat, you said the members haven't even blinked. So
correct.
you've started to socialize this with your members. Like, were you worried that they would be worried? Like, were there things that you were worried about that didn't come to fruition?
No, there's nothing that I was worried about. One thing, because I have bought and sold co-working
Yeah,
spaces as
already.
well.
Yep.
One of the lessons I was like, members don't care nearly as much as you think.
Yeah.
Like it is a very personal
About sort of
thing.
the ownership and the business strategy. They care about the experience and they want that to
Yes.
be consistent, but the behind the scenes stuff, they're not
They
gonna take that on. Yeah.
God, and you think that they're gonna care. Like they don't.
Yeah.
And so They get some benefits. They do care if their prices go up,
Yeah.
like unjustified. They do care if there's like larger bureaucracies being in place,
Mhm.
but overall, they do not. They don't care, and that's an important takeaway. This is very personal for you, not
Yeah.
very personal for
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
So, like when I sold the location, I don't think there was any members that left. When I bought a location, I mean, one thing I changed up the business model a little bit, but I made like I lowered the prices, and that was like their probably biggest change,
Yeah.
right? Besides that. So members don't care. Don't care.
Yeah.
I think that's just important for
Yeah.
owners to hear
Well, I
and to
think even we have an outsized concern about community manager turnover. Like if you look at someone's Google reviews, they're almost always referring to the team member, right? Because that's their experience with the space. And we know community managers turn over very consistently, and the business survives. You just,
well,
yeah.
that's important to remember is like now that like I wasn't the community manager, like I was doing a lot of that being like forced into, I was not giving them the best experience.
Yeah.
Like my community manager does a better job. I
Right.
have other things I need to do and I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And it's like you can just do things and say I'm sorry all the time.
Yeah.
Uh they care about that. The community manager they care about, and that does change. And you do have processes in place. Overline ownership, they do not care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an important thing to be able to separate yourself. When I sold my location, I was very much surprised by how easy was able to move on.
Yeah. Like figuratively and literally.
Yeah, yes. It's you do it once or twice and you're just like, okay, all right, like
Yeah.
this isn't my only
Identity.
identity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For some
Talk
people
to
listening, it is, but it's healthy to extract yourself from your
it was very
Yeah.
painful. We had to move my original location because the building got sold after 11 years of being there. And that there were a lot of memories.
Yeah.
I I was not expecting my firstborn daughter has the middle name that street was location was on. It was emotional for about 4 weeks and it was fine. You
It's like
know,
like this.
it was fine. Yeah. So,
Okay, Craig,
all
we have to wrap this up. Thank you for sharing. And I think everyone listening is probably has learned a lot and maybe some wheels are turning, which is, I think part of the hope too. And I think we have to do this again, like in a year, and you can tell us what you've learned and what your experience is. I think it'll
you know,
be fun
I'd
to
be happy to. We're going to tell you that we have 12 locations in one
exactly.
year.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I love it. Well,
So,
congrats, and I'm excited
thank
for you.
you. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll catch up again soon.